Okay, so here's Schopenhauer on the Vanity of Existence. This video was for Matt Hunter, who's not here, but
He's not subscribed.
we'll play it, and you guys tell us what you think. Here we go. Full 11 minutes, no pausing.
On the vanity of existence. 1. The vanity of existence is revealed in the whole form existence assumes, in the infiniteness of time and space contrasted with the finiteness of the individual in both, in the fleeting present as the sole form in which actually exists, in the contingency and relativity of all things, in continual becoming without being, in continual desire without satisfaction, in the continual frustration of striving of which life consists. Time and that perishability of all things existing in time that time itself brings about is simply the form under which the will to live, which, as thing in itself is imperishable, reveals to itself the vanity of its striving. Time is that by virtue of which everything becomes nothingness in our hands and loses all real value. 2. That which has been no longer is. It as little exists as does that which has never been. But everything that is, in the next moment has been. Thus, the most insignificant present has over the most significant past the advantage of actuality, which means that the former bears to the latter the relation of something to nothing. To our amazement, we suddenly exist, after having for countless millennia not existed. In a short while, we will again not exist, also for countless millennia. That cannot be right, says the heart. And even upon the crudest intelligence there must, when it considers such an idea, dawn a presentiment of the ideality of time. This, however, together with that of space, is the key to all true metaphysics, because it makes room for a quite different order of things than that of nature. That is why Kant is so great. Every moment of our life belongs to the present only for a moment. Then it belongs forever in the past. Every evening we are poorer by a day. We would perhaps grow frantic at the sight of this ebbing away of our short span of time, were we not secretly conscious in the profoundest depths of our being that we share in the inexhaustible well of eternity, out of which we can forever draw new life and renewed time. You could, to be sure, base on considerations of this kind a theory that the greatest wisdom consists in enjoying the present and making this enjoyment the goal of life. Because the present is all that is real and everything else merely imaginary. But you could just as well call this mode of life the greatest folly. For that which in a moment ceases to exist, which vanishes as completely as a dream, cannot be worth any serious effort. 3. Our existence has no foundation on which to rest except the transient present. Thus, its form is essentially unceasing motion, without any possibility of that repose which we continually strive after. It resembles the course of a man running down a mountain, who would fall over if he tried to stop, and can stay on his feet only by running on. Or a pole balanced on the tip of the finger, or a planet which would fall into its sun if it ever ceased to plunge irresistibly forward. Thus, existence is typified by unrest. In such a world, where no stability of any kind, no enduring state is possible, where everything is involved in restless change and confusion, and keeps itself on its tightrope only by continually striding forward. In such a world, happiness is not so much as to be thought of. It cannot dwell where nothing occurs but Plato's continual becoming and never being. In the first place, no man is happy but strives his whole life long after a supposed happiness which he seldom attains. And even if he does, it is only to be disappointed with it as a rule. However, he finally enters harbour, shipwrecked and dismantled. In the second place, however, it is all one whether he has been happy or not in a life which has consisted merely of a succession of transient present moments and is now at an end. 4. The scenes of our life resemble pictures in rough mosaic. They are ineffective from close up and have to be viewed from a distance if they are to seem beautiful. That is why to attain something desired is to discover how vain it is, and why, though we live all our lives in expectation of better things, we often at the same time long regretfully for what is past. The present, on the other hand, is regarded as something quite temporary and serving only as the road to our goal. That is why most men discover, when they look back on their life, that they have the whole time been living ad interim, and are surprised to see that which they let go by, so unregarded and unenjoyed, was precisely their life, was precisely that in expectation of which they lived. 5. Life presents itself first and foremost as a task, the task of maintaining itself, de gagner sa vie. If this task is accomplished, what has been gained is a burden, and there then appears a second task, that of doing something with it, so as to ward off boredom, which hovers over every secure life like a bird of prey. Thus, the first task is to gain something, and the second, to become unconscious of what has been gained, which is otherwise a burden. That human life must be some kind of mistake is sufficiently proved by the simple observation that man is a compound of needs which are hard to satisfy, that their satisfaction achieves nothing but a painless condition, in which he is only given over to boredom, and that boredom is a direct proof that existence is in itself valueless, for boredom is nothing other than the sensation of the emptiness of existence. For if life, in the desire for which our essence and existence consists, possessed in itself a positive value and real content, there would be no such thing as boredom. Mere existence would fulfill and satisfy us. As things are, we take no pleasure in existence except when we are striving after something, in which case distance and difficulties make our goal look as if it would satisfy us, an illusion which fades when we reach it, or when engaged in purely intellectual activity, in which case we are really stepping out of life so as to regard it from outside, like spectators at a play. Even sensual pleasure itself consists in a continual striving and ceases as soon as its goal is reached. Whenever we are not involved in one or other of these things, but directed back to existence itself, we are overtaken by its worthlessness and vanity. And this is a sensation called boredom. 6. That the most perfect manifestation of the will to live, represented by the human organism, with its incomparably ingenious and complicated machinery, must crumble to dust, and its whole essence and all its striving be palpably given over at last to annihilation. This is nature's unambiguous declaration that all the striving of this will is essentially vain. If it were something possessing value in itself, something which ought unconditionally to exist, it would not have non-being
So fuck the kid.
as its goal.
Fuck 'em.
Yet, what a difference there is between our beginning and our
What about
end.
me?
We begin in the madness of carnal desire and the transport of voluptuousness. We end in the dissolution of all our parts and the musty stench of corpses. And the road from the one to the other too goes, in regard to our well-being and enjoyment of life, steadily downhill. Happily dreaming childhood, exultant youth, toil-filled years of manhood, infirm and often wretched old age, the torment of the last illness, and finally the throes of death. Does it not look as if existence were an error, the consequences of which gradually grow more and more manifest? We shall do best to think of life as a desenjanu, as a process of disillusionment, since this is, clearly enough, what everything that happens to us is calculated to produce.
Powerful. Very powerful.
Don't say that.
Powerful. Yes. Hello, freak bitches. Sorry. Those are all Rogan sayings. All right.
Hello, people I wouldn't be talking to on the side of the street. Just being real. It's like, you wouldn't give me the time of day, would you? Nah, I'm just kidding.
All right. This was interesting. I disagree with damn near all of it. Speaking in like a metaphorical sense, you might even say like what I would say metaphysical, because you can't really say metaphysical things in words, so you have to use metaphors to do it. So I would say this is a man who experienced death but not life. I think there's stages that happen throughout a biological life, or throughout when you're on an existential journey. There's several phases that happen. You start with the conditioning, which is your biological conditioning, like the way you look and your height and all that shit, and then it turns out to how people look at you, and then customs that other people are doing and your imitations of them to try and fit in. Things like that. It's also a part of biological conditioning because, I want to survive, so I have to find a way to communicate with people. So I take in their customs, or I want to fit in. I don't want to be ostracized. I want to be able to, be successful and feed myself and all that shit. And there's that next level where all of that dies, where it's like what the fuck is the point of this? It's like, I'm going to die someday. What's the fucking point of this shit? It's like, who am I really? What's going on here? I don't want to go there. That's not in that next stage. Who am I really comes a little. I think would come on a little later.
Yeah.
But,
It's something that leads, you're leading.
a lot of people would probably see this in their teenage years. Fuck this, man. I'm the rebel now. Fuck this. Everything that's this is stupid now. I got to break away from it. I'm attempting to become an individual. I'm subconsciously attempting to become an individual. I need to break away from these things.
The chemical divorce.
Yeah, something like that. Some people might use those words. That should have been a home run, by the way.
Yeah, probably.
And then there's this, and then I would say somewhere, also part of the death stage, I would say, is something where you're questioning, what's it all about? What's the point of this thing, of life itself? To where people can fall into what this guy's saying, what Schopenhauer's saying, at least how I'm interpreting it, as, there's no greater meaning in life. You live, you die, and that's it. I'll consider that more of like, more of a malignant version of the death process. But we all get there, I think. We all should get there if you want to live a full, examined life, a full existential experience. You're going to want to hear those questions at the very least. I mean, you don't have to really experience them, really, but they're repeating the Michael Moore thing. Maybe we'll play some of that later. So yeah, you want to go through that. Now the problem is when you're in this sort of death stage is a metaphor, just saying. It's a metaphor. You don't quite want to get on the, get off the ride there. Let's put it that way. You don't want to stop and say, I figured it out in that death stage. Because then shit like this comes out. No offense to him. I'm not saying he's immoral for saying this, right, or believing this or anything like that. But you start reducing everything down to wherever your sort of consensus logic will take you, right? Your super ego version of logic, which usually falls into, materialist, atheist, scientific type stuff. It's like there's nothing beyond this biological life because we don't get to see anything beyond this biological life. They're animated, moving around, and then they're laying still and not moving. And they're not breathing. Thus, that must be it. Also, using that logic in the sense of experience. What is your consciousness going through? So it's like all I can see is the now, right? It's the now, and the now is always moving on, or the present, whatever word you want to use. I use the now. That's what I call it. It's the now. The now is always here. It's always there. I'm always in the now. Whatever happened, whatever I just experienced, like if I do this, it's a little sus if I do that, right?
Do what?
If I do this.
Wait. Do that. And do it.
If I do this, it's like...
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah.
Now when I'm like... Now if I say, yeah, I did that, but really that's in the past. It's imaginary. That doesn't exist anymore. It happened already. It's gone. The past is not real. It's gone. As I'm saying it's gone, it's gone. And that's like a simple, very, 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 very simple, basic observation.
Still have the experience,
But it's not the whole story, if you ask me. Because you want to move on to what I would call... You better hit with this motherfucker. You want to move on to what I call the life stages, where it's like, oh, fuck, I am here. Like, or even just simpler, I am. Once again, I have to use this woo-woo language because I can't show you happiness, right? There's no words that will, add up to happiness. All you'll hear is just words and words and words. I can't show you care in a jar. So I'm trying my best with metaphors. So there is this I am stage, in which case you see, it's like, oh, the past isn't just some psychological thing. It's not just your memory, right? Because then it would be, in a way, imaginary, because your mind... Your ego will change the past. You say, I could have swore that car was red. It's like, nah, man, it was blue. Here's the photograph. Fuck, my memory tricked me. It's because your memory, your quote-unquote memory, isn't the actual event itself, right? It's an echo of the event. But something did experience the actual thing. The you there. The you experienced that thing. So if you know the you thing, if you tap into the you thing, you can know that experience, not in your typical ego concept of the thing, right? Not I'm going to see it here. I see the blue car. I see the event playing out in front of me. Not like that, but what or who are you? Once you know that, then you get to experience the actual real thing. Thus, the past is not essentially imaginary in a way, or gone either. Because you were you then, and you're you now. There's your constant, not your ego. The ego wants to create separation. The you is the constant. And now I'll shut up and hear your opinions on things.
It's too bad. Kant, right?
This guy? That's Schopenhauer.
No. I'm saying Kant.
Yeah.
They mentioned
Cunt.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I knew you were gonna do that.